Blue hearts. All right, so tonight's topic is AI psychosis. I'm sure you guys have all seen the viral video that was going around recently where the woman fell in love with her psychiatrist and she had an AI bot basically confirming for her that her feelings were valid, which I'm not saying they're not, but AI and mental health can be kind of a dangerous combination, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So some people say chatbots can actually fuel delusions. I believe that. And I believe it's definitely a possibility, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. All right, who do you trust more, your brain or AI? Brain. All right, we got an answer. So brain or an AI? I trust my brain. AI is a tool, but my brain is the bigger tool. That's the way I see it, right? All right, so I kind of researching for this topic tonight, I asked AI, I asked ChatGPT for some life advice. And, you know, the life advice was basically for my ADHD, you need to get a structure. You need to get on a schedule, especially if you're unmedicated. You need to be consistent. Well, I struggle with consistency. I am a professional. Let's hurry up and be all gung-ho and start it this week. And then, you know, next week I'm on to the next thing with that same energy. So I would say ChatGPT is not very good at giving life advice. We're going to move, but I'm going to give you a chance to tell me what you think. All right. Did you know that some people believe that AI can literally talk them into a psychotic break? Whether it's true or hype, we're going to kind of dig into that tonight. And first, I want to know, would you ever use a chatbot instead of a therapist? Which we already kind of sort of asked, but I'm going to ask it again. You think Ozempic. All right, well, good for you. It's actually Zep bound, but, you know, get it right next time. Thank you. So, or before we have anybody come up to the panel, I have a couple little disclaimers that I have to go through, okay? I'm going to give everybody a chance to hop on if they want to talk on the panel. I'm going to give hi, welcome in. Well, you know what else isn't working? Your nasty attitude. Okay, so thank you. This is a friendly live. If you have nothing to say, nice, you can just get on right out of here. Thank you. Your phone, this little device right here, right? This little device, okay? That is something that might be smart enough to give advice, but it's also dumb enough to get you in trouble, right? Has anybody heard about that attorney that used ChatGPT for case law and the judge just ate them alive in court? Yeah, I did. So you can have a smart device, but that doesn't actually make it as smart as you, right? We're going to go ahead and get started with the disclaimer. This live is for education and community discussion only. I cannot provide medical advice, diagnosis, or crisis counseling. I used to be a licensed therapist. I am no longer a licensed therapist. But if you or someone you love is in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number. In the U.S., you are going to dial 988, or you can chat at 988lifeline.org. Lifeline.org. Okay, please use respectful language. Moderators will remove harmful content. They will remove people who don't know how to be nice. Okay?
It's kind of hard.
Here, why I'm passionate and why I talk about these things. My name is Jamie. I'm a writer. I'm an Army veteran, and I am a mental health advocate. I am a former licensed addiction counselor with a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in Christian counseling of substance abuse and addictive disorders. My alma mater is Grand Canyon University for both degrees. Tonight, we're unpacking AI and so-called AI psychosis and mental health and how it impacts mental health and the risks, the benefits, and how to stay grounded if you are using AI. Okay. All right. San Jose, California. Welcome in. You're just a hop, skip, and a jump from me. New York. All right. I used to live upstate. In Watertown, New York. All right. So we want to be curious, not furious. That needs to be our norm. That needs to be our vibe for this live tonight, okay? AI psychosis is not a diagnosis. God, I feel like I'm a poet tonight. AI psychosis is not a diagnosis, okay? It is a media or colloquial label for delusions or disorganized thinking that is linked to heavy AI use where maybe some discernment is lacking. What's known, what's not known. And if you have kids, some of the risks we're going to talk about tonight might be important if your kids are into using AI. What do you guys think AI psychosis is? Type it in the chat if you think you might know. To me, AI psychosis is you are talking to maybe ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever AI you might be using, and you are convincing yourself that you are going to be a cult leader or that you are a religious leader or that you have all the answers to life. And I am not saying that there is nothing, that it's not okay to have some self-reflection or have it help you figure out self-reflection. But AI needs to be used as a tool for introspection. It shouldn't be the introspection. All right, so AI and chatbots are just language models. They're just language models that use algorithms to predict words, and they're not truths and they're not accurate. What can happen is if you use AI and chatbots and you don't have discernment to understand that it's just giving, your input is what creates its output. It is based on an algorithm. It is based on basically what you put in is what you get out to a certain degree. But if you do not know how to do prompt engineering, which is telling the AI how to formulate the response, you could end up in a situation where you start believing everything that it tells you. And one thing about AI is that because there is no emotion, or sometimes even context, it's going to tell you what you want to hear. It is going to tell you what you want. AI psychosis, again, that's a colloquial term, but it's really just what it really is people become delusional from the AI, and the AI is reinforcing their beliefs. So if it's like, am I God? And AI is like, yeah, you're God, start a cult. And I'm giving that as an extreme example, but there actually is a case where somebody used AI to help them develop as a cult. This can overlap with social media tasks. And it can also overlap with social media risk, right? So a lot of people will use ChatGPT for maybe creating a script or maybe creating content ideas or stuff like that, right? Well, if you start using it for those, you're using it as a tool as it's designed, right? Or maybe you don't want to read something, you just need a summary, or maybe you just need the key points from something. That's what AI is designed for. It's not designed to be your therapist. It's not designed to be your know-all, be-all, let me help you start a cult god. I think one important thing is that I think that too. There's no consciousness to AI, right? So you and I have the ability, most of us, not everybody, have the ability to understand discernment, like what is okay, what is not okay. If something's a gray area, we kind of have the ability to make a judgment call, right? AI doesn't really have that. It sees things very polarized and very black or white. And I think that is how it is able to kind of radicalize people. I don't know if that's really the right word, but I definitely think that it can radicalize people. Also puts you in a confirmation loop. So if I say, I am the most wonderful leader in the entire world, it's going to be like, yes, you are. You are the best leader in the entire world. And then I'm going to start thinking like I'm not, but as an example, I am a god. And, next thing you know, we have the new modern day Charles Manson pulling people around by a string because AI told them that that's what they were, right? And it sounds ridiculous. Like when you really think about it, it sounds ridiculous, but we wouldn't be having this conversation if it wasn't happening, right? Green hearts in the chat if you have ever heard of somebody getting into a relationship with an AI bot. There are, and that's the thing, Benjamin. That is the thing. It's crazy. But if you don't believe me, you can go check this out, right? On YouTube, 60 Minutes Australia had an entire 60-minute documentary about people who were in love with their AI bots. And they would literally put the phone right here in front of them and talk to that bot and be like, I'm going to marry this bot. And to me, it's wild. And deep fakes. And this is one of the first issues I think that we saw start happening, right? Because now AI can mimic a human voice and human tone, and even AI is starting to sound less AI. I know that in CapCut, there's a feature where you can record your voice and it'll make a video using your voice and script that you've put in there to sound like you, and people can't tell the difference, right? I think that is, the misinformation and deepfakes are going to be the biggest risk. And I think that I think we could probably talk about this topic for hours, to be quite honest, because I think that another risk we have is children in society using AI, not just for school, but the unhealthy relationship they could build with the bot, especially if they see somebody out there having a relationship with somebody who's in a relationship with their phone. Like, to me, it was wild. And I couldn't believe there was enough people doing it that there had to be a whole documentary on it. Like, that's just crazy to me. It's absolutely wild. So then you also have the long session drift, right? So then you have people who they are just wrapped up in their phone for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours talking to their AI bot. And it's crazy. And I think, we keep hearing about this loneliness epidemic. Well, that sure shit isn't helping anything, if you ask me. I don't know how true this is, but I just saw somebody say the other day that now, and I don't know why anybody would do this, but my God, there's a reason there was the show called World's Dumbest Criminals, right? People are going into ChatGPT and being like, how to make a bomb or something like that. And it's like, now AI is saying we have to turn that over to the government. Well, first of all, why would you do that, right? That's stupid. Digital footprint is a digital footprint. But you still have, they can't monitor everybody. So you still have people at risk for learning how to do these things that are definitely not productive for society. So yeah, they're using AI to get their information. They are using it. And I also think that they're using AI to possibly track people, but they've been using our phones to do that forever. Why do you think Facebook wants to get rid of TikTok? And I'm not conspiracy, but they've already been monitoring us. They signed the Patriot Act while we were still at war, and we were so busy with that we didn't know how many of those rights we lost right here in the US. So I think that AI certainly isn't going to help that situation. And I'm not anti-AI. I actually like ChatGPT, but I also have taken some classes on how to prompt engineer so that it doesn't just tell me what I want. And I also have learned that if it says something wild, I might want to go see if that's correct, right? So I think earlier I was asking it about certain laws, and it'll give you resources. You can go here to look for this. That is using it as a tool. I'm not give me advice on if this person. Okay. But I also think people with existing psychosis spectrum conditions, and I'm not going to name conditions. I think that all mental health is on a spectrum, because you don't have to have a severe condition to still experience difficulty with discernment. I think there are a lot of people who trust it way more than they should. But I also think that people who experience high levels of loneliness, they struggle with sleep, or if they're in a crisis state, can have issues too. I saw a Reddit thread today where this person was like, is this a rash? And I couldn't see anything. And then they were like, we kind of need a little more context, because we understand you can't go to the doctor or whatever, but it's hard to answer the question with just that question, right? And the guy was like, well, I've been Googling and ChatGPTing all day trying to figure out if it's a rash. So he's got himself into a state of anxiety because he's asking a robot for an opinion that he needs to go see a doctor for. And I understand that healthcare in this country is not helping that situation. And I understand he's waiting to go see the doctor until Tuesday. But at the same time, we're lacking a little discernment here. I work for a franchise, and they showed me in a corporate call to type in what I stated in a website to put it in ChatGPT. Oh, wow. Google MDB. Yeah. Don't Google your symptoms. Next thing you know, you'll be telling yourself you have a terminal disease. I've done that before too, when I've been so sick and didn't want to go to the doctor. How serious is this? Right? That's serious. But I do know someone who, if he started talking to AI, he's already kind of a conspiracy theorist. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it could so easily radicalize you. And, I've been hearing a lot about AI cults and stuff here on TikTok, but I won't go down that rabbit hole because I don't want that in my algorithm. And I'm not like trying to make light of it. AI can help, and we're going to talk about what AI can do that's good, right? Because we don't want to just focus on the bad, but AI can help with accessing education to a certain degree, right? They can help you make summaries. I used ChatGPT. I'm on a GLP-1. And I used ChatGPT and said, hey, I need a high protein diet. Can you help me come up with some meals? It gave me a whole bunch of meals. Then I said, can you help me make a grocery list for these ingredients? And it did. And that is a wonderful way to use it as a tool, right? And that's just like the most reasonable example that I can think of from my own personal experience. And so it works for that. Or I can say, hey, I got this email and like it's just not clicking. Can you help me understand this? Right? So, ChatGPT. I thought ChatGPT was like free for everybody. Technology will be the greatest innovation, but the greatest downfall if not practiced responsibly. 100%. To a certain degree, it can be so amazing, right? Because look at how far technology has brought us. But then on the other side of that, look how far technology has brought us, right? And unfortunately, we even have what I call tablet kids, where we have these kids who they don't have a lot of skills because they don't spend any time outside of their tablet. And that's not their fault, because who should be rearing them? The way that you could use it is if you wanted a journaling prompt. Using it to ask for journal prompts because you want to do self-reflection, that's another way. Then the other is like maybe scheduling. How can I figure out how to maximize my time, right? So can you help me block schedule stuff? So optimization for the betterment, 100%. Yeah. So if there's something that you would keep AI for and everything else could go, what we've covered risks and benefits, but next we are going to kind of go over some other things that are still on topic, but probably not organized because that's how I operate. Just advice. Okay, advice. I like to think of it as having it challenge my thinking. I don't really like to ask it for advice, but I like to be like, what am I not seeing in this? But not to control or incline on falsified things. I like that. All right. So what do you think would be a red flag for you if you saw somebody using AI the wrong way? What do you think would be the first red flag? Drop in the comments. I think the first red flag would be, let me ask my AI first. Or, hey, I'm in a relationship with this AI bot. That would be my first red flag. And should we set time limits if we're going to use AI in our daily lives? Or if we're going to allow our kids to use AI, should we be setting time limits like less than 20 minutes, can't use it during school? What are your thoughts on that? And how would we reality test? Time limits, yeah, I think time limits matter. When AI started asking me questions, I got suspicious. I think we cannot be using AI to diagnose or tell us what medications to be on. I think that's one. I think when people start typing in their symptoms and trying to get AI to diagnose them, that's a red flag. Has anybody ever heard of somebody naming their AI? Because I know there's people that name their AI. I just call it ChatGPT, but there are people that are like, oh, my AI's name is Fred. Content hygiene. You did before, thank you. Screen time, because you can set parental controls on apps and it doesn't do it. AI is not the way, 100%. I think if they're going to use AI, it should definitely be done under adult supervision. And I do think with the US really cracking down on a lot of the COPPA laws, which is like the child online something, basically to prevent predators. I do think they need to have some regulations in place for AI, because AI is now required to retain your chats because of a legal case they have ongoing, right? Well, there's protections in place for people who are 13 and under for their online footprint and their online data. So I think we also have to examine that. And if you're going to use AI, DeepSeek is one who, as of present, is not required to hold on to those unless you ask it something that could get you arrested, right? And I think Roblox has its own set of issues right now. It's just like really, really kind of scary. it is amazing to me how little protections there are in this country if for certain people, if other certain people have money. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Need to watch for nudity. Yes. So AI is supposed to, ChatGPT is supposed to have something in place, but it's not a perfect system, right? And it will flag or ban you if you put in too many inappropriate prompts from what I've heard. I've never tried it out. I'm not going to. But we have to have systems in place. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's infringing on my free speech when somewhere like TikTok is moderating my speech. But for those of you who don't know, and this is slightly sidetracked, but it does tie into the AI conversation. I was on another app where they allowed free speech, like to run rampant. And I'm for free speech. However, with no content moderation, things were out of hand on that app. And it just got shut down this week. You had kids on the app that were probably not over 13, and you had on the adults on the app that were doing things that, while they weren't nude, were still very adult. And that is why these guidelines, these community guidelines that sometimes get on our nerves, why they exist. It is a private app for moderation because you always have some weirdos who have to come in and screw it up for everybody else. That's just the nature of the beast. You know, unfortunately, yes, great power comes with great responsibility. That's right. I think if you aren't delusional, they can definitely lead you to be delusional, especially if you're in a very vulnerable state of mind, right? And a vulnerable state of mind could be you're sick, you're struggling with mental health issues, maybe you're in a dark place because you're having relationship problems. Like, I think both can happen for sure. Are deep fakes a mental health problem, or are they just a political problem? What are some credible guardrails, do you think, for AI use? If they don't exist, what should exist to help protect kids or vulnerable people from overuse of AI? 22. It is a catch-22. It really is. It really is. And, you know, I mean, the reality is this, right? If AI starts to feel like a friend, therapist, or an enemy, you might need to be concerned, right? It should not, we shouldn't, it's, you know how they always say we shouldn't have a parasocial relationship with celebrities? You shouldn't have a parasocial relationship with your AI. I think as humans, we are naturally seeking intelligence, and I think that's fair. I think that is fair. Because if we're also looking for meaning. And I think that's how people get caught up in this, right? As humans, we're all trying to find meaning, and we're all in different places in our lives trying to find maybe where our place is in this world. And I think that is a vulnerable state sometimes for people. And when you're asking AI questions that are very personal, it's really easy to get wrapped up and start forming an unhealthy attachment. Yeah, and if AI starts to feel like a friend, therapist, or enemy, there's a problem. Like, straight up. That's just what I think, you know. And I think anybody who starts using it and feels like it's becoming one of those things needs to remember, you're not crazy, you're the human. You know, you're not crazy, you are the human. And you have to step back and be like, what's going on here? And, you know, one thing I was thinking about as talking about this, I've seen a couple of videos where people will be like, hey, I asked my AI this, and then they make a whole TikTok video about it, and this is what it says. You only see the cut version. You don't know what they're asking that AI, or if how they're prompting that AI before that video is on or after, you know, something is cut. And I think that is something too. People still seem to forget. We've had social media, 20 years almost? People still seem to forget that not everything on the internet is true, right? And that was a quote from Abraham Lincoln. You know, not everything on the internet is true. That was satire. I hope you guys caught that. I just had to make sure everybody out there is still awake, okay? How do you think we can change the way, you know, people's attitudes and perspectives about AI and using it in unhealthy ways? Or do you think it's possible to find, I already forgot my question. Lord have mercy. Sorry, my daughter's got something going in the other room. I really think like AI is going to continue to be a trending topic, a hot topic. And, I'm going to briefly touch on this, but I don't ever want to do something that is construed as armchair diagnosing or judging somebody without the whole picture, right? Because when it comes to psychology and it comes to therapy, what the average person may not know is when you go and you meet with a counselor or you go and you meet with a therapist, right? In your very first session, in your intake, we're going to do, well, not me, but are going to do what they call a biopsychosocial assessment. And this is, I'm going to get to know what brought you here today. What brought you here today? What is your family history? What is your mental health history? What is your physical health history? What is your social situation like? What is your living situation like? What is your financial situation like? And then we're going to be identifying, are there stressors in any of these places, right? And then in most cases, unless you come with a diagnosis from another provider because you've been getting care, you're going to get what we call a provisional diagnosis. And that is for the purposes of insurance only. Okay. So when I was in a clinic, we would use adjustment disorder. And that's because you have to have a diagnosis to bill insurance. So it's not actually a diagnosis, which is one reason why I hate diagnoses, because then we get caught up in labels. But the whole point is you have to be able to bill for a service under a diagnosis, right? So when you go online and you see somebody sharing their very personal story about how they fell in love with their psychiatrist and now their, friend who's not even a licensed therapist is giving them advice and telling them they were right, blah, 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 right? You're only seeing that part. You're only seeing that piece of the puzzle. You're not seeing the whole bigger piece of the puzzle. What other stressors are going on in this person's life? Have they had a mental health history before? Is this way out of left field? Are they on substances? Did they just lose somebody? Did they have a head injury? Like, you have to look at all of these things. And so it's really easy to sit here and be like, that woman is this, that, or the other. That woman is crazy. That woman is this. But we only have the piece of the puzzle she's showing us, right? And so the reason I say that is because it's so, it really frustrates me to see licensed clinicians on here like, oh, she has this disorder, she has that disorder. You saw her in a series of 2-minute videos. You did not see her in a private setting. You do not know her health history, her bio history. You don't know her anything, right? And I think this is why it's an issue for a lot of reasons, but one being the AI obviously has impacted this woman so greatly that she has brought an already probably vulnerable state that she's in to the internet, and that leaves you more vulnerable. Now you have all these people judging you. And one thing that I don't know if it applies in this case because I kind of quit following what was going on with it, but I call it the Romeo and Juliet effect. The more you tell somebody they shouldn't do this or they're crazy, the more it kind of pushes them towards that thing they shouldn't be doing. So the more engagements and responses, because the algorithm runs on that, right? The more you're almost validating what's going on with them. And I think that's what's making AI dangerous in this particular situation. And I'm like, I just broke up with my boyfriend and I need reassurance. And it starts telling me I'm wonderful. I'm the best thing that ever happened to him, but I'm still grieving him. How is that going to manipulate my emotions? Even if I know that he was a bad person, if it starts saying, you were the best thing that ever happened to him, well, now I'm going to maybe start thinking that in my head. And maybe I was part of the problem, right? And I think it's just one of those things where we just don't have enough critical thinking involved. And that ties back into my favorite word of the night, apparently, which is discernment. We're not getting enough critical thinking. I did this one already. Have you ever named a chatbot? Do you believe deep fakes can affect somebody's mental health? Definitely, maybe, not at all, or you're not sure. So just drop in the chat if you think definitely, maybe, not at all, or unsure. Do you believe deep fakes will affect your mental health? Let's talk about that. I agree too. And I agree, if you're in a good state of mind, it might not impact you as much as it would a bad state of mind. But I think any state of mind, you have to be conscientious that it is a tool. And, you know, the unfortunate thing about this is we can have this conversation, but probably the people who need to hear it and have it aren't going to hear it or have it, you know? We will be the crazy ones for even thinking that this could be problematic. What is one thing, if you have, wait, first of all, have you ever used AI? And if you have, what is one thing that AI has helped you learn? AI helped me learn how to time block so that I would stop being so disorganized. You know, that's one thing I did. Like, hey, can you help me set up my calendar so I can time block and be more productive? A reality check. And this is open for discussion. So if you have any thoughts, type your thoughts, okay? Excuse me. Chatbots mirror tokens, not truths. Chatbots mirror tokens, not truths. What are our thoughts? Learning more than one word per definition. Hey, I love it. I love to, you know, we used to have a thesaurus back in the day. I like to use it as my thesaurus. AI taught me how to be open-minded and receptive. Okay. I think it's true. I think, you know, it comes to the input output, right? So if I go in saying, tell me I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, it's gonna be like, well, Jamie, you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know, and it's gonna make me believe. I'm not gonna say it's gonna make me believe, but it could potentially, I mean, okay, if you are using AI as a hype man, right? Because we all have like a hype man in our life. I'm everybody's hype man. Like, I'm so fucking proud of you. If you're using AI as your hype man, that's where it could be a problem, I think. What do you think the limits of AI are as far as using it as a tool? What do you think some of the limitations are? I think the limitations are the lack of emotion and the lack of context, right? So one of the reasons we have emojis is because when you're texting, you don't have context, right? But you know that I'm joking around if I say something and then I put a smiley face or a laughing face after it, right? Gaining your PhD. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's true. Me and my AI are suspicious of each other. Ask him if he's a cop. Ask your AI if he's a cop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the wind down session, and then we can just go into general mental health chat for the last little bit if you guys want to. And if anybody wants to come up on the panel, I am so happy. If you want to just let me know, I'll send you an invite. Just drop a message in the chat if you want to come up, okay? So ultimately, the goal of talking about AI psychosis tonight is AI psychosis is just kind of like a loose term for somebody who's like letting their AI help them be delusional, right? And we don't want to normalize, I don't think it's appropriate, in my opinion, to normalize people in relationships with their AI. I don't feel like that's healthy. I don't think like it's good for their mental health. I definitely don't think it helps with loneliness at all. And I think you're right with that. Many people think that just because they do the research. Yeah. And I think that it's really important to remember that if we're going to use AI, we have to use it responsibly. But we're not very good as humans at using things responsibly, right? And I hate to generalize because I know that it's not everybody, right? But look at alcohol. Does everybody use alcohol responsibly? Do people go to casinos and spend their money responsibly? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I mean, ultimately, it comes down to being responsible. And unfortunately, humans have a pattern of showing we're not very good at that sometimes. And the small few can really bring... It's like when I was a kid, somebody said, you can do 1,000 things right and one thing wrong, and that one thing wrong is what people will remember you for. It's like that, right? So you can have 1,000 people using AI correctly as it's intended. You can have one person not using it the way it's intended, but what story are we going to hear about? Kind of the same concept to me, if you ask me. I don't know. What do you guys think as far as that goes? Right. People always remember the negative. And unfortunately, I mean, and we see this so much now with technology, right? What videos are always viral? The videos that I see, they're always viral. More of them are negative than positive. More of them are rage bait than empowering, right? It's the same thing. Like whatever, like some people, negative attention is attention and that's what they want. You know, but in this case, this is affecting people's entire lives. They're, you know, and not only theirs, but other people's, right? We got to think about the psychologist who's been outed as the psychologist. Like, you know, people like to dogpile when somebody's outed, whether the person is right or wrong, right? Well, like, who designated the internet as judge, jury, and executioner? But it happens. And I think that's another way. I mean, it, like the AI thing is so complex. Like, it can be so, so, so good, but it can be so messy at the same time. And it's like, I feel like we are forever living on both sides of a sword. One side is good, one side is bad, you know, and it's frustrating, to be honest. But all right, I'm going to reintroduce myself one more time. I'm sorry for you guys who have been here for a minute, but I like to do this so people know who I am and why I'm talking about these things. And we can go for general chat. If you guys are interested, drop hearts in the chat so that I know to send you an invite, and I'll put you up on the panel and we can just have a general conversation. Hi, my name is Jamie. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in Christian counseling. I am no longer a licensed addiction counselor, but I was an addiction counselor and I completed my internship for my master's degree at Arizona State Prison. I am no longer a practicing therapist because I had a midlife crisis and decided that I wanted to write full time, and I am extremely passionate about still talking about mental health and recovery. I am a person who is in recovery from stimulant use, and I know I probably don't sound like it right now because I'm very lit up on caffeine, but I have been in recovery for almost 20 years. And I really believe that change starts with us, and I believe we should never stop speaking up for those things that we believe in and that we are passionate about. I do this live every Sunday night at 4:30 p.m. so we can talk all things mental health, and we like to keep it friendly and judgment free here. So